The last time I filmed a walk, which was back at the beginning of January, I said this. Making the most of this cold, sunny, clear, beautiful weather we're having before the cloud and the rain descends again. Well, I think my words were prophetic, because since that day, and we're now at the beginning of February, it's just had rain, 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 and more rain, and flooding all over Dorset. But not today. Today we've got some sunshine, so we are out on a walk, and I'm revisiting my past. Good morning, and yes, today is a lovely day, or at least forecast says sunny periods, so that's 100% better than it's been for the last umpteen weeks. And yes, today is another of those walks which is a revisiting my past walk, and we've started in Branksome Woods near the Penn Hill corner. And it's an area which is very much part of my history from childhood. When we lived in Parkstone, we used to walk down to these woods at Branksome Woods, and we would walk through the woodlands and then walk back home again. And it's a few miles from here to Parkstone, but we had no car, probably couldn't afford a bus. So it was walking all the way. And plus, one of my aunties, my Auntie Nellie, lived very near here. She had a house right beside the railway line, and I do remember we used to visit her, and I have a feeling my grandparents, although I never knew them, lived in that same house before her. So that's not far from here. So yes, when we used to visit her, we probably used to come down the woods then as well. That was as a child. Later on, when I become a little bit more independent, an older child, my mates and I from Granville Road in Parkstone all used to come out on our bikes for the day, and one of our routes we're going to be following today, or at least part of it. So we used to cycle down through Branksome Woods, down to the beach, the coast at Branksome Chine, and then along the Chine, and then we used to take another route inland and do a big circuit before we went back home again. But it was back in the days, of course, when you could do that as a kid. My parents never knew where we were or where we were going or when we were going to be home, and we had no phone, of course, but it wasn't an issue in those days as it is today. Then later on again, when I became teenage and up to the age of about 24, I had a dog. I used to bring my dog round down here, and we used to walk him. I used to walk him through the woods, and so it went on certainly till I was 24, when I got married and moved away from Parkstone. But it's always been one of my stamping grounds. So this is going to be an interesting day. There is lots of history as well to these woodlands. So hope you're going to join me. It'll be a great day, and I'll tell you all about it as we go. So Branksome Woods is a long, thin belt of woodlands which stretches from Penn Hill Corner, which is now a busy road junction, down to the coast at Branksome Chine, but it's part of a much larger area originally, with a lot of history. And the first bit of history, I think, is coming up very soon, but I will tell you all about the history and the background of this area as we walk. So this is the first bit of history of the area, and this is a pedestrian gate. It was originally at County Gates. County Gates is kind of halfway between Poole and Bournemouth, and was originally the county boundary between Hampshire and Dorset. This gate, although it was at County Gates, is not technically the gateway between one county and another. This is actually the gateway to what was the Branksome Towers estate, a large palatial house with acres and acres of ground, which was built by Charles Pack. We'll hear all about him in a minute, but this arch was dismantled and moved to this site in the late 1980s, I think. So it was in 1974 that the county boundary changed in this area. It was, as I say, kind of halfway between Poole and Bournemouth. So Bournemouth was in Hampshire, but overnight it moved, the boundary moved east, and suddenly Bournemouth and Christchurch all came under Dorset. Not a popular decision, I don't think, with the local residents, because as we will see in a minute, this is quite an affluent area, and Hampshire was seen as an affluent county, as opposed to Dorset, which is kind of rural, very rural, and kind of yokels, Dorset yokels or whatever. So it wasn't popular. Hampshire, of course, was well connected with cities like Winchester, Southampton, Portsmouth. Dorset, of course, has villages. So the people here, who were and are quite affluent, didn't like it that much, I don't think. But County Gates actually still kind of exists as an area. We still call it County Gates, even though there are no County Gates anymore. But it's an extremely busy intersection of roads now, and the archway that we've just seen, as I said, was dismantled and moved by volunteers and rebuilt down in these woods. And all the way along these woods we follow this little stream. Now some call it the Bourne Stream, but that's not actually correct. The Bourne Stream flows through Bournemouth Gardens and comes out near Bournemouth Pier. This stream has no name on the map, although I think it's known as the Branksome Chine stream, but it goes all the way down to the sea. So, a quick bit of history on Branksome Woods. It used to be a vast tract of open heathland. The whole of this area was heath at one time, wild heath, remote, with hardly any dwellings on them at all. And from this heath there are a number of ravines that drop down to the sea. Now these ravines are known as chines on the south coast of England, Chine is a steep-sided valley which runs down to the coast, and there's a number of them. We'll be going up at least 2 today, and the name Chine actually is used in kind of Devon, Dorset, Hampshire, the Isle of Wight. The only part of Hampshire that differs is the part of the coast that abuts the New Forest, where the word chine is not used. It's replaced with the word bunny, and bunny means steep-sided valley. So you get Chewton Bunny, for instance, as one of the Hampshire places, which could be, if it was here, it would be Chewton Chine. Interesting, huh? Localized names. So when this was all heathland, it wasn't a particularly safe place. People, travellers and so on, heading for anywhere, Christchurch or whatever locally, would very swiftly go across these heathlands that were here. And the reason for that is that it was a heavy smuggling area. So Queen Elizabeth I had a hunting lodge here on the open heathland. That was known as Cernabas, named after the village of Cernabas. But yeah, as I say, there were lawless bands of smugglers around here. They would land contraband down at the coast, obviously, Branksome Chine coast, off the beach, and then bring it up this narrow ravine known as the Chine, and then obviously head off across open heathland as they carry it inland. And it stayed that way until 1802. Now, the Enclosures Act had already been introduced. The Christchurch Enclosures Act came into force in 1802, and that is when gradually this massive tract of heathland was sold off. And of course it was all bought up by wealthy landowners, as you would expect. And this area was originally bought by a member of the Bruce family from Scotland. It's obviously a famous Scottish family, Robert the Bruce and so on. So they bought up the whole of this area initially, and in fact they were responsible for creating the woodlands, because they planted a lot of pine trees in this area. And obviously Branksome Woods is famous for its pine trees. And it was the Bruce family that gave it the name Branksome. Branksome apparently comes from a Sir Walter Scott poem, The Lay of the Last Minstrel. So they named it Branksome. This is known as Branksome Woods. It was known as Branksome Park, and Branksome Gardens as well, further down I think. So the Bruce family eventually sold it, and it was bought by Charles Pack in 1851. He built a huge mansion here, I think on the cliff tops, which he called Branksome Towers. And the gate which we passed earlier was of course the pedestrian gate into that area, and some of the roads around here were just the driveway to his estate. He was an MP. Eventually Branksome Towers, his house, became a hotel and has been demolished now. Interestingly, he maintained the Scottish connection with this area, because he used a Scottish architect to design and build his house. It was Charles Pack who actually built the local church, which we are about to pass, I think, although he never actually saw it finished because he died not long after. and then the area was bought by Henry Berry in 1867. So before we continue with the history of the area, I thought we'd take a little detour and have a look at the church. Church of All Saints, Branksome Park. Well, that was a very quick look at the church. Very grand. It's actually a lovely church. Used to be High Church at one time. I don't know if it still is. Not an old church, as I say. Well, at least not an old church by most standards. So, back en route again, and back to our history lesson. We were at Henry Berry, who bought the land, but over a period of time, building plots were gradually sold off, and there were some stipulations on these though, and that is, or one of them, is that houses each had to have at least 1 acre of garden, and that I think is responsible for making this the affluent area that it is now, because not many people could afford that. But the part of it that was never built on is this belt of woodlands running down to the sea, the woodlands that we now know as Branksome Woods. And this passed into the hands of the borough in 1895, and has been kept as open space ever since. Further down there is a garden that was designed and laid out, which we'll reach in a minute, but they were remodeled I think in the 1930s, and I got a feeling that they used people from South Wales to do the work. I think it was at the time when South Wales had a lot of unemployment, so I think they used Welsh people to do the work. So a few famous people have lived in the Branksome Park area. Max Bygraves was one of them, J.R. Tolkien, Mantovani, the orchestra leader, and Robert Louis Stevenson. He had a house called Skerry 4, which is a bit further over, but still part of the Branksome Park area. But it is a very lovely area to walk, wooded, with these ancient pines and other trees. You can just imagine, I think, Victorian couples walking down through here, perambulating, is it? Is that what they used to do? But we are coming to the Chine now, as you can see. We are in a ravine. It's absolutely beautiful light today. And this is one of the older bridges. There's a couple of things we used to do when we were kids, I remember. We used to pick, this is a dead one by the way, pick a rhododendron leaf and then make a little boat out of it. So we would punch a little hole with something like a stick, and then we would take that, if I can do it, and poke it through the hole like that, and make a little sail, and then we would drop it in the water. See who's went the farthest. Oh no, it's going to get snagged on a rock. The other thing we used to do as kids is take a rhododendron leaf, big one preferably, get a sharp stick, scratch your name on it, and then we were always told that if you put it inside your shirt against your skin, that your name, which you couldn't really read when you scratched it, but you would be able to read it after a while. If you left it against your skin for a while, then took it out, then you would be able to read your name clearly. And it worked. I don't think it actually needed to go against your skin. Or maybe it needs a bit of heat, does it? Maybe it's the warmth of your skin that makes the edges of the scratch go brown, which is how come you can see your name. So if you've not tried that, give it a go next time you pass by a rhododendron bush. But we used to have some great fun coming down through these woods as kids, and my dog used to love it as well, of course, when I was older. There's a lot of pipes coming out here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see where the stream goes underground. So can you imagine smugglers coming up through here? Probably not as it is now, but obviously in those days it would have been full of undergrowth and dark, and obviously it's been tamed since it was turned into a gardens or a kind of recreational type area. Obviously that's tamed it, but in those days this would have been rough and rugged ravine. And we get lots of bridges now because we weave from one side of the river to the other. Stream. So this is the part where the landscaping really comes out, because we're getting near the bottom of the Chine now. We've got to cross the road and we'll be on the beach. But when we were kids, we used to reckon that this part of the river was landscaped to be exactly the same as the south coast of England. I've never been able to see that anywhere. It's kind of rumoured, I think, but I've not seen it anywhere to agree with that. The main reason for it is there used to be an island, and they've narrowed it. I think they've reclaimed it. I think it used to be a lot wider somewhere here, and there used to be an island, and we were very brave and used to jump across to the island when I was very young, and it seemed like an enormous jump at the time, and I think we used to think that was the Isle of Wight, but I've not seen that anywhere, and I don't know that it's true, to be honest. Nice story though. It's going to get noisier now. There's a tablet on the wall just to commemorate the opening of the gardens after the 1930s rework. And so we reach the beach, Branksome Chine Beach. And here at Branksome Chine we've got a very large cafe restaurant now, but originally the original building, which is the white part at the back, that was the first solarium in Great Britain. It's something that came across from the continent. Solarium is like a big sun lamp, I suppose. So inside the building there was actually an artificial beach laid out, sand strewn out. There were UV lights, deck chairs. It was just like a beach, except it was enclosed in a building and you could get your tan without having to go outside. It didn't prove popular though. Not popular with us British people like it was on the continent, and so it closed. I guess we couldn't see the point of being indoors in an artificial beach when you got one right outside, although you could do it year round, of course. So the next part of our route takes us along the seafront, so we're going to walk along the promenade heading towards Bournemouth. And it's quite windy here. Disappointing, because I was going to put the drone up. I carried it especially to put it up over the beach, but it's just too windy. I'm unable to. On the drone front, incidentally, if you've been following me, you'll know I had a flyaway drone that just took off, had a mind of its own, and I nearly lost it. Well, I had to send it back to the makers, who were unable to repair it in time, so they've given me a refund. So I'm glad about that, really, because it's not me. It was the drone just got into its head that it wanted to go somewhere where I didn't send it. So this is obviously where the Branksome Towers was. It's now a upmarket residential development. And it's up there. Here's another chine, the next one, Branksome Dean Chine. I think I might make use of this. There's nobody here in the beach hut, so I might borrow their beach hut because it's out of the wind up here and I still get the view. So I think it might be lunchtime. That's a very chill wind, so I'm really glad of this shelter behind me to give me somewhere warmer to sit. I could put another layer on, of course, but I'm not going to bother. Once I get walking again, it'll be too warm. Wonder what he wants. Well, thank you Beach Hut for your shelter. Time to get walking again, so I've got to get out into the wind again and the sand. Actually, I was thinking that if I'd have sat down here by the beach, I would have literally eaten sand, which is because there's quite a lot of sand blowing about. So I've actually gone past my turn-off point to head inland again, but I thought I'd have a little detour along here a little bit towards Bournemouth Beach. So this is our fourth chine. This is Middle Chine. The third chine I haven't filmed yet because we're going back up that one in a minute. And in the distance you can see Bournemouth Pier. And this is the fifth chine. This one's Durley Chine. And even here on the promenade you're not safe from cliff falls. And if you want to get to the cliff top, this is one way to do it. Well, if it's operating, that is. It is not at the moment. So we're almost at Bournemouth now, but I'm not actually going to continue. I'm going to return now back to Alum Chine the way I've come, but I just wanted to come up towards the pier. Bit of a detour off the route. So I'm making my way back now towards Alum Chine. This is an absolutely amazing day. I mean, it did say sunny periods today, but to be honest, I've not had much cloud here at all. It's been an absolutely glorious day. Just look at that sunlight. And over there in the distance you can see Old Harry Rocks. So we're back at Alum Chine now. So we're going to turn inland for a time. We will come back out onto the promenade again further down. But I thought I'd come to Alum Chine this way, because this is where the tropical gardens are. Well, it's not looking at its best, and it does look like it's closed off. This section says danger, keep out, so whether that's to do with cliff falls I don't know, so I might have to backtrack. So we're walking up through Alum Chine now. Another steep-sided valley. Ooh, it's got a cool gateway. In fact, I think this is the biggest of the chines along this section. So this is the way we used to cycle as we headed inland, but there is something in particular up here that we used to come up here for. And we used to have a bit of fun there, albeit maybe slightly naughty. I thought I was a good child, honestly. And here it is. It is up there. A rather wonderful suspension bridge. And we need to go up there. And I'll show you what we used to do. So it spans the chine from one side to the other. So we used to come out onto the suspension bridge. And down below is the path that I was on just now. And what we used to do is pick up some fir cones and then wait for someone to be walking along underneath, and you would drop it. See if you could land it on someone's head. And then we get away and hide. I really shouldn't admit to that, should I? Didn't always work, because these planks have gaps in. You can probably see. So in fact they can actually see your outline if they suspected you. Most people thought it just dropped off a tree, and I hasten to add, we never actually sent down big cones. They were always just always small ones, so they wouldn't do any harm, to be truthful, if they did hit. And we never hit anybody, to be honest. We just tried to drop them near them, give them a bit of a shock. Well, we were only kids, and like I say, I was a good kid as well. I was a good, well-behaved. That's all my mates, I blame them. They were the ones who used to encourage it, not me. But this is a lovely suspension bridge. We used to love coming up here on our cycle route. Now I believe there are actually 3 bridges spanning this chine. One of them, famously, is one that Winston Churchill fell from when he was a child, playing chase, I think, with his friends. But fortunately he was alright. It wasn't this one, I don't think. I'm not sure you'd want to fall from this one, it's quite high. But there you go, that's the Alum Chine suspension bridge. And Alum Chine, incidentally, gets its name from alum, which was mined here back in the 16th century. Anyway, we are heading off, and we will drop down to the coast in a minute. But it's rather lovely to revisit my past and come to the chines and the woods and the suspension bridge again. We had some real fun here when I was a kid. So we are now dropping down into Branksome Dean Chine, which will take us back down to the seafront. I suppose this path gives you an indication of how steep-sided these chines are. And of course why they would be such perfect smuggling areas. You could smuggle all kinds of stuff up through this valley. There is a funny story actually that happened, I think it was Branksome Chine, when it's a story that said that the smugglers were carrying barrels of brandy up through Branksome Chine. When the excise men came along, they were on their heels, so in order to save themselves, they apparently dumped these barrels of brandy into the local well. And it said that people from far and wide used to come and fill their buckets up from this particular well, because the water had quite a pleasant taste. I don't know how true that story is, but it's folklore, if you like. And we're back to the spot where I had lunch. I was hoping the wind might have dropped by now, but unfortunately it hasn't. What a fantastic evening. Absolutely amazing. course, what's even better this time is that I've got the wind on my back, not on my front. Much more pleasant. And we're back to Branksome Chine again. We'll have a quick wander down to the sea before we say goodbye to it and head inland. Well, we've left the beach, sadly, and we're heading back into Branksome Woods, currently at the entrance to Branksome Chine and these lovely gardens. I thought I'd take the top path on the way back. This is the east side of the Chine. Not quite at the top, but near. So the Chine is down there. In fact, this path joins that path a bit later on. Just thought it'd be a change to come up here. Well, I think I'd better sign the video off now. The light is rapidly fading. I'm down in obviously the deep valley anyway, which is making this quite dark. so we'll be losing the light soon, so I'm going to end it now. I've got to just a short walk up through the woods following my friend the stream, which is behind me, to get back to the starting point. So yeah, it's been a absolutely awesome day, totally amazing. I've absolutely loved it today. I'm so glad I came out, made the most of what is the first sunny day of February 2026, and yeah, had a really good walk, revisiting my past and memories of my youth and my childhood. So it's been fantastic. Shame I couldn't put the drone up, but never mind. I did everything else that I wanted to do. It's going to be somewhere between 9 and 10 miles, I think, by the time I get back to the car. So that's a good walk in my book for beginning of February. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks so much for coming with me. I hope you found it interesting, the history, and hearing a little bit more about my past. So yeah, thanks for coming with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've absolutely loved it, as always. But for now, this is me, the Dorset Rambler, saying until next time.